At the end of the last season retrospective, I asked a very simple question. Will Season 3 continue to live up to the standard that last season set? As good as Showdown was, if there's one thing that Fortnite's known for, it's inconsistency. And now that we're at the end of Season 3, I can now confidently say, it's fine. It's fine. It has its gimmicks and charms like any season, but when I think about what makes runners special, it's a little hard to think of anything besides the obvious. Outside of sprites, there's really nothing too special here, but it's also perfectly fine and serviceable for what it is. It's like the Howl's Moving Castle of Fortnite seasons. Like, the stuff it does well, it does really well. And the stuff that it does bad, you'll probably just forget about until you rewatch the movie years later and go, oh yeah, I forgot, the witch just kinda stops being a good character after a while. Like, a year from now, everyone's going to forget about the problems that this season had and only remember collecting sprites, and probably nothing else. But with all that being said, what exactly were the problems with this season anyway? Let's see. Let's look at everything that Fortnite Runners has to offer. The good, the bad, and the secret villain that nobody knows about. He's right behind me, isn't he? No housekeeping this time. I've already made like 2 other videos like this. I just assume you know what's happening. Let's just jump right into it. First off, I've gotta start off by talking about the return of sprites. Oh my god, they're so adorable. Look at them go. These little guys were the main focal point of the season. While carrying one on your back, they give you a small little bonus ability. These range from simple things like healing in water, going invisible while reloading, and seeing other players' footsteps, to more substantial things like extra health, increased pickaxe damage, and siphon on elimination. The powers the sprites give are really fun and diverse, giving some extra spice to Battle Royale while not causing too much havoc. None of the sprites do anything too extreme. Some of them are more powerful than others, but none of them feel insanely powerful. It never felt like you needed a specific sprite to win a game. In fact, you could win without one just fine. They're very comparable to boons from Chapter 6, being more of a minor upgrade that you don't necessarily need. My personal favorite sprite this season was the Wind sprite. They don't do anything too fancy, just an increase in movement speed and a bigger jump, but a speed buff is always nice to have regardless of how much it is. Also, look at him. He's perfect. You can also level up sprites to make their abilities stronger. And if you like a specific sprite, you can collect them and then bring them into the next match. That's fun. However, if you die in the next match, you then lose that sprite and its levels. Suddenly, the inspiration behind adding sprites becomes a lot more apparent. As much as I enjoy what sprites add to Battle Royale, collecting them is a goddamn nightmare. For one, extracting sprites is such a hassle. The 3 ways of collecting sprites are winning a match, using these little extraction pods, or the extraction sites on the map. And all of them are terrible and inconsistent. Extraction sites not only take a full 40 uninterrupted seconds to spawn, but they also let out a beacon letting people know that a site is being used. So not only are you stuck waiting on a thing to spawn for nearly half a storm phase, the entire time you're just announcing to anyone nearby that you are currently a sitting duck that definitely has something valuable. Either you get lucky and nobody shows up, or the vultures come to break your kneecaps and take everything you have. And as a reminder, failing to extract a sprite means that you don't get to keep that sprite. You can resummon the ones you lost, but only after extracting them in the first place, adding them to your collection. All it takes is one team pushing you at the exact wrong time, making you lose everything, and then suddenly, I'm not playing Fortnite anymore. The other ways of getting a sprite out are also not the best. Portable extractors are nice on occasion, but you only have a limited amount of them, so you can't use them all the time. And the only other way to get a sprite out of a match is to win the game. All of this just to get a little chud on the menu page. Congratulations! Now do it again. Each sprite also has variations. It can be golden, galaxy, holofoil, and whatever, and they're all just here to artificially inflate how many sprites there are to collect. If you only count the base sprites, there's only 25 sprites you actually need to collect. But if you want to get all the variants of the sprites too, then you need to collect 117 of them. The variations do have their own little bonus effects, but they're so minimal, I bet you don't even remember what half of them do. Another thing that bothers me so much about collecting sprites is just how rare some of them are. I understand that they want some of these sprites to be elusive and difficult to find, but the drop rates of some of these sprites are rarer than shiny Pokemon. Now, theoretically, this shouldn't be a problem. If somebody finds a rare sprite, they still need to bring it into a match to master it. And when those people eventually die, they'll lose that sprite and another person will collect it. However, that would only happen if people brought rare sprites into a match, which they normally don't. Mastering a sprite is very easy and can be done before Second Storm even forms. And once a sprite is mastered, there's no reason to bring it back out. Why would you bring a fully mastered rare sprite into a match with you? All you're gonna do is lose it. And because these are such sought after collectibles, even if you do, it just makes you a target. The wealth will only spread if the wealth is spent, but people are not willing to spend unless they see a benefit from it. So instead of distributing the wealth, the people who are already rich are just gonna stay rich, while the poor people won't see any of that. And now you understand why trickle-down economics don't work. I want to reiterate what I said at the start of this section. I like what sprites add to Battle Royale in terms of gameplay. I love the abilities they give, but going through the headache that is collecting them all just doesn't feel fun to me. It was interesting for a little bit, but that was because I was playing Fortnite in a different way. Anytime I would actually try going through and mastering sprites, I'd normally just hang out and storm most of the game like a little rat. But after like 20, 30 matches of doing that, the charm starts to wear off. Or at least it did for me. I know a lot of people went crazy over trying to get them all, including some of my friends who spent an insane amount of time trying to collect and master every sprite. You can tell by the player count that this season had that they're doing something right to keep players' attention. Sprite collecting is a major success, but for me, this just really isn't my thing. I'm not the type of person who collects trading cards for their value. I'm the type of person who collects trading cards because I actually want to play the game. I don't care how valuable your magic card is, if it doesn't help me cast Approach of the Second Sun, I'm not interested. But surprisingly, more people care about collecting the cards than they do using the cards, and the same thing goes for sprites. The abilities were my favorite part, but everybody else cared more about collecting all the shiny guys. Ooh, sparkly. So, why am I making such a big deal out of collecting sprites? Like, we're on page 3 of the script, and we haven't talked about anything else from the season. If collecting the little guys is such a problem, then why don't you just ignore them? It's not like it's a requirement. You don't need to collect sprites this season. The rewards are just some back blings and an emote. There is still a whole Fortnite season outside of this system. If you don't want to collect sprites, then why don't you just ignore it? That's because outside of sprite collecting, there really isn't anything exciting going on this season. There's a few cool things, don't get me wrong, it has its moments, this is not a bad season, but there's also nothing too unique about Battle Royale. The weapons, the POIs, every other element of Fortnite took a back seat this season and did not get the same amount of attention that it normally does. Once we start looking past everything involving sprites and look more at the Battle Royale side that Fortnite is known for, the cracks start becoming more and more obvious. Enough about sprites already, I'm tired of talking about them. Let's jump straight into the good stuff and talk about the item rotation this season, which, for some reason, they once again decided to completely change the loot pool. Literally 0 weapons from last season are here. Obviously, a new season's gonna make changes, but a complete loot pool refresh after we just had one last season. Like, come on. This just takes away from the sense of familiarity established in the previous season and makes you learn an entirely different set of weapons, even if most of these weapons are from previous seasons. Oh, we haven't even started talking about the weapons themselves, and I'm already bitching. You know what? No, never mind. Let's start on a high note. The shotguns this season were great. Oh, Chapter 4 weapons, I've missed you so much. The Maven Auto Shotgun. With a decent fire rate and a solid magazine size, it is the perfect shotgun for somebody with terrible aim, which means it's the perfect shotgun for me. I'm pretty sure this is one of the weaker shotguns in the loot pool, having the lowest damage output, but it makes up for that with speed. I'm gonna be real, most of my enjoyment here is just pure nostalgia of shooting this thing again. Even though Fortnite brought back one of my favorite shotguns this season, it's surprisingly not my favorite one that's in rotation. That honor goes to the extending focus shotgun. This is just the gatekeeper again. Like, these guns are almost identical to each other. 3 shots in the mag that deal an incredible amount of damage, and this thing tears people apart. It's just a gatekeeper with a little extra sauce. You can probably guess by the name, but the extending focus shotgun has an extended range. While the gatekeeper experiences damage drop-off after 9 meters with a maximum range of 27 meters, the extending shotgun, on the other hand, doesn't have damage drop-off until 12 meters and a max range of 65 meters. You can hit people from crazy far away with this thing. Not for a ton of damage at that range, but sometimes just a little poke is all you need. I love this thing. Call me a casual for saying this, but I actually really like the gatekeeper, and I like the extending focus even more. And speaking of shotguns that I like that the rest of the community doesn't, the Chaos Reloader was in rotation this season, but due to significant backlash from players, it was eventually taken out after a week. Listen, I'm telling you, if you want to balance the Chaos Reloader, change nothing about it other than making the reload time like 5 seconds long. If you lean into its gimmick more, you'll keep what makes the gun fun while toning down its strength. But until that happens, I don't think we'll be seeing this thing for a while. I'll miss you, buddy. The last shotgun that we have to talk about is the Striker Pump, which is the most confusing addition this season. Like, the gun's fine, it's a pump shotgun, it does what it's meant to. That's not the confusing part. The confusing part is, why did they replace the iron pump with this? Like, what did it do? Why remove a weapon that nobody's been complaining about? This just circles back to what I was talking about earlier. Yes, there needs to be change from season to season, but by changing everything all the time, you just lose that sense of familiarity. Even if you're replacing a weapon with something that's almost functionally identical, you still need to learn about all those little nuanced changes between the two. And again, the Striker's fine, I just don't know why they added it. And that's all the shotguns from this season. Now that we're done talking about the highs, let's immediately switch gears and talk about what I am willing to say is the weakest assault rifle meta Fortnite has ever had. Out of all 4 options you have to choose from, almost none of them feel great to use. The Chaos Exploder was off to a very promising start. A little too promising of a start. It's an AR that not only slowly reloads itself like the other Chaos gun, but its shots also explode on impact, doing AoE damage. And it was absolutely broken on release. All you needed to do was just spam this thing in the general direction of a player and you would just shred their health. The splash damage of this thing could add up very quickly, especially if multiple people were shooting you, and that's not accounting for when people would actually hit you directly with this thing. I'm sorry, did that just say 51 for a body shot? Even for legendary rarity, that's a lot. This gun needed to be nerfed, and a few days into the season, it did. And by nerf, what I mean is they completely lobotomized this gun. Going from one extreme to another, this gun went from overpowered to, yeah, it works. It went from 30 damage down to 23, and the explosions got hit harder, from 15 all the way down to 6 damage. Not to mention all the other changes that this gun had to undergo. I understand that this gun needed to be changed, but you didn't need to neuter the damn thing. Yes, the Chaos Exploder was too strong, but by trying to solve that problem, they fundamentally changed how this gun plays. What was meant to be a fairly basic AR with splash damage instead became the slowest spray and pray weapon ever invented. What made this thing interesting was the splash damage and hitting people around corners. And in the process of balancing, they took away what made it interesting. The gun went from a cover denial nightmare to a kinda slow AR that does extra tickle damage on occasion. I think the problem with the Chaos Exploder is that when you hit someone, it did both impact damage and explosion damage at the same time. If hitting someone just did the base damage alone, I think that would have solved a lot of the gun's problems. Looking at the numbers pre-nerf, on paper, they don't look too bad in that context. And they did later replace common versions of the exploder with the Spider Rifle, a gun that behaves very similarly and does around the same damage that the exploder would be doing without the explosions. If they just made it so when you take impact damage you didn't take the extra explosion damage, it would have solved a lot of this gun's problems. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I can see why they just kind of gave up on trying to balance this thing and just left it as it was for a while. Despite the nerfs, it was never a bad weapon, it just lost so much of its charm. Next is the Surgical Burst Rifle, which is probably my favorite AR this season. That's not really saying much. The competition's not that steep. With this gun being completely hit scan and doing a solid amount of damage, it would be the perfect long range for this season. It would be if it just wasn't a burst weapon. Burst weapons can be fun. I remember liking things like the burst pistol and the striker burst, but something about the surgical just isn't landing with me. I do like the surgical, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about it that's throwing me off from time to time. If I had to guess as to why, it would be that the spread doesn't go down between shots. The longer you shoot this thing, the wider the spread gets. For what's meant to be a surgically precise weapon, it seems to have some accuracy problems. Normally something like this is meant to balance like a spray weapon, but this is a burst weapon. It's already hard to spray people. That assumption could be wrong, but a lot of the times when I'm using the surgical, I would start hitting people for a solid amount, and then I just wouldn't be able to hit them after that. Maybe I'm just trash, I don't know. Hey, speaking of trash, they also put in the Warforged. In the context of Chapter 5, this thing was alright back then, but in the context of Chapter 7, oh my god, what is this thing supposed to do? Its spread is too wide for long range, and its damage output is so little compared to the exploder and the surgical. The way this thing shoots, this is not an assault rifle, this is an SMG that takes medium ammo. I'm sure that it has its uses, but in this loot pool, the Warforged struggles to pull its own weight. The Ranger pistol is a better medium range gun than this thing. In fact, all of the ARs this season pale in comparison to what the Ranger pistol does. It's just the perfect mid-range option out of everything else in rotation. A very tight spread, quick damage output, a fast fire rate, and a surprisingly good range for a pistol. It is everything you would want from an AR compressed into a small yellow gun that is infinitely more common. While every assault rifle comes with some kind of significant drawback, the Ranger pistol just doesn't have any. It's more accurate than the surgical, it does more damage than the Warforged, and it's faster than the exploder. I don't mean to be rude when I say this, but when a pistol is more powerful than the ARs, it's a sign that there's problems with the loot pool. While the Ranger pistol was very outstanding in its field, all the other small ammo guns just kinda got shafted. They had both the Stinger and the Flex SMG in rotation for a while. Hey look, a Chapter 7 gun from a previous season. You don't see those very often. However, for some reason, they just removed these guns from the loot pool and replaced them with the rapid-fire SMG of all things. Like, why? I'm more so-so on the Stinger, but I really like the Flex. It's more precise when aiming down sights while still having a really good hip fire for those panic moments. And then they just replace it for seemingly no reason. Like, what are we doing, dude? Man, I'm just not liking anything in this season's loot pool outside of shotguns. Is there, like, anything else that can give me any amount of dopamine? Oh, that's what I'm talking about. The hunting rifle was brought back this season and was the only good long-range option you really had, being a high-impact weapon that hit for a lot, doing a solid amount for a body shot and a headshot being an OCO. Except for lower rarities, because fuck me, I guess. Now, as much as I like the hunting rifle, I am also willing to admit that this gun has problems. For one, it's a little too easy to use. Because there's no scope, hitting a shot from close up is not that hard. And for being a high impact weapon, the hip fire is weirdly tight, making it very easy to point blank headshot someone with this thing. Yes, the two people I shot in this clip were bots, and those weren't hipfire shots, but my point still stands. The hunting rifle's lack of scope also meant that there's no sniper glint when aiming with this thing. So when someone's shooting at you, it's very hard to tell where it's coming from. As much as I like this thing, it has its problems. Unfortunately, after a while, they did take the hunting rifle out of rotation. And then they replaced it with the heavy impact sniper. And for the first time since Chapter 5, we got a sniper in rotation that can one-shot, baby. This is also the perfect replacement for the hunting rifle, because it fixes all of the issues that gun had. The scope makes close-range shots nearly impossible, the hipfire range balloons when you're not ADS'd, and the sniper glint helps identify where you're being shot at from a distance. Not to mention that the high-impact sniper was originally a gun from Wrecked, meaning that this thing interacts with cars in very interesting ways. Hitting a car with this thing will make it go flying back. And because reboot vans are drivable now, that means you can actually stop reboots from a distance by shooting the van. Like, oh my god, I love this thing so much. They need to have a gun like this in rotation more often because, oh my god, I am out of practice with this thing. Dude, it was like Whiff City when I was using this thing. But when I would hit, oh, I would hit. This is the only example from this season of them replacing a weapon with something better. As much as I don't like this loot pool, there are things here that I thoroughly enjoyed, like the main mobility of the season, the 7 sliders. These are robot legs that make you zoom across the ground. What's really nice is that you don't need to be holding these things when using them, letting you actively shoot people while sliding, and you can even slow down while aiming, which helps your shot and lets you drift. These things will overheat over time, so you can't slide around forever. Unless you find the limitless sliders, then you can just slide around forever, which is great. Even if you don't find the forever sliders, there is a way to make the regular sliders go for longer. Because the sliders overheat, that means you can slide on top of water to cool them down, letting you slide for longer. That's such a fun attention to detail that adds more depth to this item, and the map has a good amount of lakes and rivers around to take advantage of this. And speaking of the map, there is an entirely new map this season, and I don't want to talk about that yet. I'm saving that for a little bit later. Mainly because we're talking about the loot pool right now, but also, we got like a nice positive vibe going on right now, and that's not gonna happen when we talk about the map, so let's stay cheery for a little bit longer, please and thank you. Another mobility item they added was shock rocks. These gave you a funny triple jump that I did not think was very useful. I saw a lot of people go crazy over these things, but personally, I don't see it. They do take you a really long distance, and while you have the shock rock effect, you just don't take any fall damage. This sounds nice, however, this comes with the downside of randomly going off because there's too many actions tied to the spacebar. So often, I would go to hurdle or mantle and accidentally use one of the charges. And what's even more frustrating is that you're not allowed to open your glider while you have the shock rock effect. That just annoys me. I'm sure a normal person thinks these things are incredible, but my brain is just too dumb and stupid to like these things. However, speaking of dumb and stupid, this season finally adds in something that I have been begging for since the start of Chapter 7. We finally got some goofy items in rotation. Along with the 7 sliders, which I also consider a goofy item because, well, look at them, they also brought back a handful of silly items from previous seasons. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I should have kept my big mouth shut. The goofy items they threw in here really didn't add a lot. The Guardian Shield can be useful in moments, but for the most part, it just slows down fights, and not in an interesting way. You just kind of jump around until the shield runs out of energy. In squads, this thing's not too bad, but in solos, it's just infuriating because there's not a lot you could really do about it. There's no real way to counter this thing, you just kind of have to wait until it runs out. Another silly thing they added was the pulse scanner. It's nice for clearing out an area, no complaints there. And then they added in the business turret. I loved this thing back in Chapter 4, but in this season, oh, this thing was just so annoying. Throwing down a turret, if it sees another player, it will continuously chip away at their health, forcing you to split your focus between a player and the turret. It sounds good on paper, but in practice, all this leads to is you throwing down a turret before a fight for some free damage. And the turret has so much health. Even if you wanted to focus on the turret first before getting into the fight, that would just leave you open to the other player. Back when the business turret was first introduced, they also added in a counter item called EMP grenades. This disabled the turret for a short time, and this would have been a perfect item to help counter the turret, but it just wasn't in rotation. Because they removed it after 3 weeks! The EMPs were here and they just took them out. What do you mean? Yet another example of them making a change that I just don't understand. An item that is perfectly fine, causing zero issues, and is literally made to counter a very annoying item is just taken out. For what? What was the problem? I like EMPs. What does Fortnite have against these things? Even when they're in the loot pool, their spawn rate was comically low. You would barely ever see these things. If they added more functionality to these things, like disabling the Guardian Shield or the Seven Slaters, they would have been a key item in the season. But no, let's remove them and keep the Smoke Grenade, an item that's primarily used by bots and nobody else. Sure, this is now the second season where the absence of EMPs actively makes things worse. It's a shame they got them. I know. I have been asking for more goofy, non-standard items in the loot pool, but I was wanting things that lead to more interesting interaction. Things like the Surf Cube, the Bug Blaster, the Chains of Hades, things like that. I want more cartoony items that lead to more cartoony gameplay, not items that get in the way of regular gameplay. This is a step in the right direction, but it's still not what I'm asking for. It's like I asked for a sandwich and you gave me a hot dog with relish. I mean, yeah, that's technically what I asked for, but one, I wanted to use the last of the bologna before it went bad, and two, I don't like relish. And with that is everything in this season's loot pool. Even though there were some highlights, I just couldn't get behind this item rotate. I forgot about the bank shot pistol. The bank shot pistol is interesting. It shoots a bullet that will ricochet around and hit for a heavy amount of damage. The concept of this gun is really good and interesting, but I just don't think it works in Battle Royale specifically. For one, this gun does not do any headshot damage. Instead, you need to bounce a bullet at least once to increase its damage. I see the logic there, but in reality, all you have to do is shoot the ground in front of somebody and you will hit them for nearly 150 health. That's too much for that. This weapon functions very similarly to the Mammoth pistol, but what makes that gun fun is the difficulty. A kill with the Mammoth pistol feels earned, while a kill with the bank shot pistol feels cheap. Like, I actually feel bad for using this thing. Oh my god, I should not have gotten that kill, I'm so sorry. I feel like this gun would be super fun in like a medium-sized closed-off environment. But in zero-build Fortnite, where most fights take place in large open areas, this gun just doesn't get a chance to shine. It technically does shine because it does a lot of damage, but like, it doesn't shine in a healthy way, if you get what I mean. Okay, that's the bank shot. Am I missing anything else? I'm saving the John Wick gun for when we talk about collabs. Quack Snacks exist, I guess. Cluster Clingers were kinda here, but their spawn rates were so low, you basically never saw them. Yeah, I think that's everything. Man, what a set of items. I hate to keep harping on at this point, but I feel like a lot of problems with the loot pool wouldn't have happened if they just didn't do another complete refresh. Like, if they had the combat AR instead of the Warforged, or they still had things like the zipline deployer. It feels like they're just throwing random weapons at the wall to see what sticks. Like, they're struggling to come up with a good item rotation. The same way that I'm struggling to come up with good transitions for talking about the Battle Pass this season was solid. Not much here that I would personally run, but still a good pass nonetheless. I just feel like we're running into that cookie cutter issue again. When I call a Battle Pass skin cookie cutter, I'm mainly complaining about two things. That the skin is very similar to one from a previous pass, and that there's nothing to the character past the surface level. I've talked about that first one a lot in the past, so let's focus more on the second one this time. Characters looking similar is not that big of a deal if there's more to the character than just how they look. The pass actually has a really good example of giving a basic character more personality, and that's Cluster. Just by looking at him, he gives off this like rubber duck playboy vibe, and if that was it, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't pay him any mind. However, there is a surprising amount to this guy. He gets an entire POI themed around him. There's this duck boat with a unique interaction that heals you when you emote. There are multiple items based around this guy, like the previously mentioned Quack Snacks and even a duck sprite. And when opening chests, you'll have a chance to be given a quest from Cluster with voice dialogue.
Good work. Now, let's see what that baby can do to our competition.
This is how you stop a character from feeling cookie cutter. Give them some personality and have us interact with them. That way, if there's a character you like in the past, there's more to them than just how they look. Like, At the start of the season, everybody was going crazy over Dylan. Now at the end of the season, does anyone still care about Dylan? Mainly because there's nothing else to the character other than looking nice. Meanwhile, I'm still seeing people talk about Cluster because there's more to talk about other than just, haha, he's a duck. And I want to reiterate, like I always do, just because a skin is cookie cutter, it doesn't mean that it's a bad skin. In fact, I think the character designs here are the best from any Chapter 7 pass. The Sword Lady, PJ, and Yowie Wolfman are really good skins, but they just don't have anything to them past their looks. Another skin in the pass is this customizable mech sprite. That's awesome, and I'm really happy that we got another customizable skin in the Battle Pass again. It's been a while since we had one of those. And then lastly, we have the only story-relevant character in a pass, and that's a new Sloan skin. Out of all of the skins in the pass, this one is probably my favorite. In fact, I was originally planning to have Sloan be used as the thumbnail for this video. But then, you know... Sloan, I love you. You're like one of the most interesting Fortnite characters, like, ever. However, unfortunately, the cat gets priority. I'm so sorry. Hey, speaking of story characters, the story this season is actually kind of interesting. It's nothing crazy, but like, I'm actually invested in what's happening. At the end of the last season's live event, we got the big reveal that the visitor was actually, holy shit, that's Jeno. For the people that don't keep up with Fortnite story as much, this is like the bad guy. They've been teasing this guy for years, and he's finally shown up in person, and the first thing he does is kill Jones. Rest in peace, King. He's not actually dead, he's just recovering in the Star Wars pod. What's interesting about the Jeno reveal is that Jonesy was the only person who really knew about it. So everyone else from the new 7 has zero idea what they're up against. Revealing the villain's plan to the audience and not the main cast is a really fun way to do it, giving every scene with Jeno a unique dynamic of how the characters see him and then how we see them. It has a very similar feeling to an episode of Columbo, of all things, where you start off by watching the murder happen, and then the actual episode itself is Columbo putting the pieces together. Oh, and one more thing, Mr. Visitor. Can I call you Viz? You see, my wife, she's been trying to get a hold of one of those 0 point sprites all season. But I just gotta ask you, why do you need so many of these things? We've been bringing you these guys all season, and it's still not enough? I just gotta say, it feels like there's 0 points to it all. I'll stop. Part of the reason I was actually starting to get invested in the story was because we got regular story quests again, and following along is much easier. For some reason, for all of Chapter 7 so far, story quests have just been jammed into the weekly quest section, and we only really got like 2 a season, maybe. Not anymore. We're back to story quests having their own section, getting multiple quests a week, and they are fully voice acted.
Jones's cognitive signs are finally improving.
For the first time since he was born, maybe.
In my eyes, this is the bare minimum for story quests. If a Fortnite season doesn't have this, I'm just gonna struggle to keep up and the story's just not gonna hit as hard. Going back to the story itself, like I said, there's nothing too interesting going on. It's mainly just about collecting sprites to help fix the 0 point. Or should I say helping the visitor fix the 0 point. There's nothing too crazy happening. That is until the girl squad figures out who the visitor is. The moment Jeno is revealed is when the good stuff starts happening. Jeno's recording that he left to the Order, asking her to join him again, is just cold.
I don't want to be enemies. I don't wish to lose another daughter. I have room for a lieutenant if you can find it in yourself to share my perfect dream. If not, you will be a worthy adversary. For a time.
He does not see her as his daughter, and in turn, she does not treat him like her father.
No, monster is too kind a word. I thought I was free of him. I thought we all were.
The conflict between the Order and Jeno is absolutely my favorite part of the story. You know how recent Fortnite chapters have been focusing on developing one character? Like how Chapter 5 was focused on Hope and how Chapter 6 was focused on Daigo? I think Chapter 7's focus is on the Order. Season 1 reintroduces her, Season 2 re-establishes her as a key member of the team, and now Season 3 is giving her a personal challenge for her to overcome and grow from. Yes, everyone has a reason to stop Geno, but the most emotional reason here is behind the Order. With everything else happening in the story right now, with Jones, Geno, Sloan, and the like, I am most interested to see what the Order is going to do next. Remember when I was complaining about the chapter story back in Season 1 and 2? Yeah, that's because those seasons didn't do anything like this. I don't care about your lore or your world building. I care about the characters and to see them grow and evolve over time. This is everything I want out of a Fortnite story, and stuff like this should not be this rare. My only problem, and I mean only problem with this story, is that it is entirely focused on sprites, and there is no sign of Jade. Like, at all. Daigo's on the map, sure, but no Jade. There is literally a reference to Chapter 6 on the map with the Sprite Shrine and even a few trees from Night Shift Forest, and yet no like a Jade. Sure, whatever. Alright, I've been pushing this back for far too long. It's finally time that we talk about the biggest change in this season. Let's talk about the new map. I don't like it. Like, legitimately, I know I've already complained about a lot in this video, but the map has to be one of my least favorite things about this season. Which I know sounds crazy because, like, look at this. Just look at it. Even I have to admit that this map is goddamn gorgeous. The shape of the island itself, with its jaggedy edges, gives it the most unique silhouette any island has ever had. And the map gives off strong Chapter 4 vibes, with it being broken up into distinct biomes with the 0 point in the center. And these biomes are a harmony of the different styles from previous Fortnite maps. The top left of the map has the more grounded and muted colors of Chapter 5, while the bottom right has brighter and more saturated colors you'd see in Chapters 2 and 3. And if you pay close attention to the POIs, you may notice that the name locations here may seem so familiar, even if you don't know their names. These are not new locations, they're POIs from the last map but with changes and alterations. Battlewoods is a recreation of Battlewood Boulevard, but now it's half the size it used to be. Calamari Canyon is just squibbly shores stranded in the middle of a desert, and Sinister Strip is Sandy Strip but taken over by the Dark Voyager. It's a very fun way to reimagine these locations and bring new life into these areas. There are also some new locations as well, like Golden Grove, Sunken Shores, and Frosted Flats. Only 2 POIs are left almost entirely untouched, being Wonky Land and Latte Landing is still here, baby! Best spot on the map! There's also a bunch of tiny secrets like puzzles, vaults, and Easter eggs like the Chapter 6 trees I was talking about earlier. There was clearly a bunch of care and love put into this map. So, why do I not like it? What's the problem? This map is beautiful, I cannot deny that, but when it comes to actually playing on this map, it's just kind of bland. Like, outside of the visuals, there is nothing here that really makes the map stand out. At the beginning of the Chapter 6 video, I mentioned the difference between visual design and level design. These are 2 separate ways to look at an area in a video game. And while the island has really good visual design, it's the level design where this map has the most problems. Let's take another look at these remix POIs to get an idea of what I mean. Sandy Strip had this big gem in the middle, and it was the most notable part of this location. But it isn't just here to look nice. Like I mentioned before, the gem would turn towards other players in the town, so by looking at the gem in the middle, you could get an idea of where other players are. Now let's look at Sinister Strip, and hey look, the gem is still here, and they still turn towards nearby players. But now, instead of being in the center of the location, it's tucked away into the very corner where it's not as helpful. You can't use the gem to find players in town if half the thing isn't even facing the town, limiting what made this place unique in the first place. Another example is Squibbly, a super low to the ground town surrounded by height on all sides, giving the space a very confined feeling and also making shooting into the area very easy. Now, at Calamari, there is nowhere near as much height around this place. There is this one plateau next to it, but it just doesn't give the same effect that this place had before. It's just open on all other sides now, completely taking away what made this place special. It feels like they were so focused on making everything look nice that they didn't even consider how players would actually interact with this space. Very few POIs feel special anymore. They don't have a layout that leads to any kind of interesting gameplay. They all just feel like generic towns that just look different. Like, what exactly makes Latte different from Flats? Outside of the giant ice block, what makes combat at these two places feel any different? What makes Battlewood and Heatwave different? What makes Calamari and Cluster any different? Outside of looks and their placement on the map, they just feel like towns with nothing to make fights here feel distinct. Now, to be a little bit more positive for a second, they don't all have this problem. Out of the 12 named locations on the map, I can at least think of 3 that have a layout that leads to interesting encounters. Sunken Shores has ankle-high water all around it, not only making this place stand out visually, but it also combos with the gameplay of the water sprite and 7 sliders in interesting ways. Sunken Sanctuary is interesting because it's mainly one big building that has all the story characters hanging out at it, and Golden Grove is surrounded by trees, significantly breaking up line of sight in this area. Locations don't need crazy gimmicks to be interesting. Think back to other places like Canyon Crossing, the Nitro Dome, and the Citadel. It wasn't just the visuals that made these places unique, it's also how you actually played in the space. These are more than just towns you fight at, they were also able to make fights in these locations feel distinct just from the shape of the location alone. And that's something that you barely feel on the Chapter 7 map at all. Hey, speaking of things missing from this map, where's the cover? A big problem I had with the previous map was the excessive amount of verticality, and thankfully, this map doesn't have that same problem. Yay. Instead, it has a separate problem of being incredibly open. Some spots have more cover than others, sure, but I feel like more often than not, my cover options are incredibly limiting. If you're somebody who mainly plays build mode, you'll never run into this problem because you can just, build. But in zero build, if you get shot in the open, it is critical to be able to get into cover quickly, or at least break line of sight. And with how open this map is, that can be a challenge. It's such a big problem that I would regularly see players hiding in trees to get cheap shots. You know how I said the pistol being better than ARs is a sign of a problem in the loot pool? Yeah, I feel like tree camping is a sign that your map has some problems too. Now, I want to make myself clear because I apparently didn't do that in the last video. I am okay with a more vertical map if there is more vertical mobility to help get around. In Season 2, I did not complain about the map's verticality that much because we had the skyline and the 7 gloves to help get around. And that same logic applies here. I am okay with a more open map if there are cover items. And the cover items we have access to this season are just not the best. There's the Guardian Shield that I've already complained about, and then we have the Bricka Bunkers, an item that is super rare for some reason, despite the fact it's borderline necessary to carry, and they break super easily. I don't know why they decided to try and reinvent the Porta Bunker, but I'm gonna be real, this ain't it, Chief. Can we just get normal bunkers back, please and thank you? Cover was such a big problem this season that I would actively replace my pocket item with either shield bubbles or the Porta cover. Yeah, the Porta cover got brought back as a pocket item. Who would have saw that coming? What's even more shocking is how surprisingly useful this thing was. This tiny sliver of metal was the only reliable cover item the whole goddamn season. Having another item like regular bunkers that spawn at a normal rate would have done wonders for this season. Look, I want to like this map, I really do. It's clear how much love and attention went into making this place, especially on the visual side of things. And for some people, That's all they need for a good map. They don't care about nitpicky details like diverse layouts or everything else I've been bitching about. For a lot of people, a cool looking island is all they need, and this season very much delivers on that. But for me, personally, level design is my favorite part of video games. Not just in Fortnite, but in all video games. It defines how you interact with the world around you, and different environments can drastically change how you play a game. While gameplay and controls are important for how you move around a space, it is just as important to make the space interesting as well. Think about how games like Dark Souls can create different encounters using the same enemies, or like how Metroidvania games get mileage out of having you go through the same area multiple times with different abilities. And even Fortnite has used this themselves to create different interesting combat scenarios. But when all you really give me is different colored towns that function almost identically, I can't help but be a little disappointed. Do you get what I'm saying? This is one of those moments where I can't tell if I'm being too pretentious or not. Like, at the end of the day, these locations play fine. It's not like any of these locations are bad necessarily, except for Lifty. It's just that they've done such a good job at this on previous maps. Looking back at the Golden Coast, for as bland as those locations looked, they played really good. But now that we're on the Shattered Coast, we've switched them out for locations that look really good, but play kinda bland. Or at least that's how I feel. Again, I'm not a scientist. We're almost done. We're getting there. I'm just gonna speed through the collab section as fast as I can. I'm tired of writing and I don't want to be here anymore. Talking about sprites again for a little bit, remember those things? They also provide the perfect way to add in little cameos into the game. I loved these. It's such a cute way to do a simple little crossover, and the abilities they give fit with each character. Vinny Jr. would give you a more powerful slide, John Wick would reveal nearby players after a knock, and Iron Mouse would slowly heal you from her warm and comforting energy. Speaking of John Wick, with his return to Fortnite, he brought his own guns to the game this time. The main gimmick of the John Wick still is honestly just that it has unique animations based off of the movie. Things like checking the barrel of the gun, running with the gun in both hands, and every so often, you'll just throw the magazine. And yes, this can do damage. That's nice. And of course, the biggest collaboration of this season was a thing called Hot Bat Summer. The collab mainly added in skins and quests, which I normally skip over in these videos, but it did add in one very big change, and that was Batman's Beach Buggy. A unique vehicle that just one-shot builds for whatever reason. You could just level out a whole town with this thing, it's great. It also had this ability when boosting in the air where it would pop out these little wings and glide a good distance. But my favorite part of this thing is, for whatever reason, whenever the buggy would glide, it would just start playing breakcore. Those are the kinds of details that just make me smile. Very simple collabs this season, nothing too extreme, and you know what? After what Overwatch did to last season, I'm kinda glad they kept things simple this time. And with that, that is everything that Fortnite Runners has to offer. I know I didn't talk about bus endings. They're cool, but there's not really too much to talk about there. Besides, do you really want this video to be any longer? Runners was a fine season, all things considered. It was okay, there was nothing like too obtruse about it, but I also really didn't like it that much. Legitimately, your enjoyment of the season came down entirely to if you liked collecting sprites. The people who played this season more like a weird extraction shooter with the sole purpose of collecting the little guys and avoiding other players as much as possible probably had a great time. I know a lot of people really enjoyed the season specifically because they found collecting sprites so enjoyable. But if you're someone like me who just wanted to play Fortnite normally, you ran into a lot of friction in that process. Do you see what I mean when I say that a lot of the problems with this season are forgettable? I don't mean forgettable as in non-issues, I mean forgettable as in a bunch of little stuff that you don't think about too often. Like, it didn't do anything too offensive. Think about seasons that are like actively hated. It's because they had massive problems that got in the way. And Runners didn't have anything like that. But just because something doesn't have major problems, it doesn't mean that it's perfect. I would compare a Fortnite season like this to mediocre chicken strips with really good sauce. Hear me out. I know it's a little late to be throwing curveballs at you like this, but like I'm going somewhere. The core elements of the season are not the best, but it's that extra stuff that pulls that weight. The loot pool and the map are the foundational aspects of a season. That's like the chicken. And the sprites, the battle pass, the collabs, the skins, all that stuff is the sauce. You do not need the best chicken to enjoy the sauce. At that point, the chicken is just a vehicle to carry the sauce. And this season is the same way. People didn't mind the problems because they just wanted that extra stuff. But when the chicken is good enough as is, you don't need the sauce if you don't want any. If you're not a big fan of any of the sauce that they have to offer, then just don't dip your chicken in it. Chicken doesn't always need sauce. But what I would prefer from a good Fortnite season is good chicken with good sauce too. I want something with a foundation that is so good that I purposefully go to take bites without the sauce because of how good it is. But I also want some of that sauce to help elevate that foundational taste when I feel like it. Basically what I'm saying is I want my Fortnite seasons to be like Raising Cane's chicken. I think I'm starting to go stir crazy from working on this video for so long. I'm fully losing it now. I think I need to stop. That's the end of the video. Fortnite Runners was okay at best, and I hope next season has better chicken. Okay, bye!
Nothing's gotta change, nothing stays the same. Change your lemonade until we all are going gray. Nothing's gotta change, change your lemonade and green tea. Oh well, we may never go our way. Oh well, it's nothing that we can't face. Oh well, it's never too late.
Hello. Most people don't stay after the credits, so the fact that you're still here shows that you clearly enjoy what I have to make. So if you would like to support me, I do have a Patreon where you can donate directly to help support the next video. Or you could use my creator code when buying something in the Fortnite item shop, that's CUZL2. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Can we hang out sometime?